Hi, I am Myles Cupp, an instructor with South Coast Swords. Last time I was sitting with this book, we had just unboxed it from the package and taken a quick look and gotten excited about what the contents are inside. This is the Talhoffer 1459 Facsimile. Let's now begin to take a deeper dive into the history and secrets of this manuscript. So who created this particular facsimile? This facsimile was funded through an Indiegogo campaign organized by the Wichtenauer director Mike Chittister. The books were bound by Grimm Bookbindery in Wisconsin, and the purpose of the Indiegogo campaign was to create a facsimile for a reasonable price by bulk ordering the facsimiles through the crowdfunding and getting those out of the HEMA community so more people could come into contact with what it's like to experience an original looking book such as this one. So that is an important thing that's been done. So of all the manuscripts to choose to reproduce, why pick this one? Why the 1459 Talhoffer? Well, let's first of all address the fact that Talhoffer himself was a very important 15th century fencing master. He was a very prolific author of treatises. There are 3 that we know for sure he produced, and possibly a 4th one. Talhoffer's works were reproduced every century after he lived, even down into the modern day. Talhoffer also in this manuscript presents us a picture of medieval Germany in its artwork. The artwork of the treatise itself could be studied in its own right, but also it's a kind of a time capsule, an artifact of that period if you look at all of the contents that it contains. It gives us an image of diversity in Germany and what the different ethnicities must have been like and interacting with each other during that period. It gives us images of course, the martial arts of Germany from that time period and all of the diverse weapons, longsword, jousting, armored combat, messer, judicial dueling. Gives us certainly a window into that, but also a window into siege warfare through the reproduction of the Bellefortis treatise that Talhoffer represents in here, representing catapults, siege warcraft, castles, scuba diving equipment, and so on down the line. So if you're trying to show off the medieval time period of Germany to your friends and get them excited about it in the same ways that you are, there are a few other treatises that I would possibly consider turning to other than the 1459 Talhoffer. After taking a quick look inside, other than the sheer beauty of the manuscript, there's still the question that I'm sure many folks have, which is why are facsimiles like these important? Why should we seek them out? Why should we care? Well, first of all, it's important to remember the foundation of HEMA that we do. HEMA is based primarily on written source material. So without written source material, we can't even begin to do HEMA the way that we have been doing it in understanding the teachings of the original period fencing masters as they were written down and passed on to their students. So from the get-go, the source material is important. And being as close to the source material as we can get is going to get us as close as we can get to the masters. Now you may say, well, isn't it sufficient just to look at a scan of a treatise online, read it, and call it a day? That will get you very far for sure, but if you want to get even closer to it, being able to look at the original examples of the books as artifacts from that time period is just as important as looking at the medieval weaponry themselves as artifacts from the time period. So a facsimile like this is important for us because manuscripts by their nature are one-of-a-kind editions of the thing that they represent. Unlike later period treatises from the 16th century and onward where the printing press is coming into its own in Europe, the printing press allows the reproduction of many different copies of a treatise. So those are much more widespread. You can go to many museums and see them, private collections, libraries. The ability to access printed treatises, while still rare, is a thing that can happen. A manuscript, however, there's only one edition of it usually. So there is only one copy of the 1459 Talhoffer in the entire world, and very few HEMA practitioners will ever get to see it in person in their lifetime. But a facsimile, which is an exact replica of that book, brings it into your hands. Other than this just not being the original article, this is as close to the original article as we can get. So when seeing a facsimile in person and bringing it into your own home and bringing it into your own equipment bag, so to speak, gives you the ability to just flip through and appreciate how the material would have been presented to one of Talhoffer's clients or students, or even viewed by Talhoffer himself during that time period. To help illustrate just how impressive it is to be able to have a full color original facsimile of Talhoffer like this, what I have here with me is The Art of Swordsmanship by Hans Lecuchner. And this book, I do recommend it for Messer, but I want to show for comparison the quality of the scans between a full color facsimile like the Talhoffer here, turned to a Messer page, and what you might have experienced or seen in other HEMA books published before, where you would encounter, smaller, reduced size scans in black and white. So these scans would communicate the intent of the author insofar as you can see what is going on, but it's still nothing compared to seeing what an original quality scan in color of the facsimile itself would look like. So in doing that, you're able to pick out details from the pages that the author who composed the manuscript would have felt was important and wanted us to see. The way that the hands are holding the messers, the turn of the weapons in relation to the fighters in as much perspective as they were able to achieve. That is something that is very important when you're looking at the images and in choosing which books you're going to study and form your interpretations from. So after the Talhoffer manuscripts were being shipped out to folks and were being opened for the first time and enjoyed and flipped through, some of them pointed out, aren't the last few pages in the book printed upside down? Is this a mistake in the facsimile? Well, no, as a matter of fact, it is not. What am I talking about? So if I begin from the first page of the manuscript and I turn and I reach the end, suddenly I start to see that these pages do indeed appear to be printed upside down. But this is the way the manuscript actually is. You can see that the pages are numbered here in pencil on the upper right, showing the page number. So what's going on? Well, this part of the manuscript is intended to be read back to front. And this portion contains sections on medieval magic and astrology, in fact, giving us a taste of that medieval aspect and culture that regarded magic as a legitimate practice. Astrology was a science. The first mathematicians were astrologers. Johannes Kepler, for example, from a much later time period, made his living as an astrologer. So that's another aspect of why this manuscript is so important, as it gives us a window into that sort of quirky mindset of the medieval folks and the things that they regarded as important or perhaps even humorous. So when medieval manuscripts were produced, in a small sense, they were produced to last. They were composed on very thick paper, and a sense of the thickness and durability of that paper is presented here in the reproduction and in the binding of the treatise, as well as even the cover itself. And just holding the book, I feel like I'm holding what I would imagine a medieval spell book ought to feel like. So in terms of the experience of enjoying a book in its presence in my company and sharing a moment with the book, I can feel that aged sense of history and having been passed down through time to me just by turning the pages. Even the smell of the book is pleasant. It's all in all a really great representation of what a medieval manuscript ought to feel like. If you like this video, please comment, and if you'd like to see more content like this, check out our previous videos, or even better, subscribe for future content.